Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 292 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ilon, CEO of Greek University, and I'm a speaker and a two-time author. Our second book is called From Letters to Leaders, Redefining New Member Education and Leveraging Belonging to Eliminate Hazing. So go and pick up that book today on Amazon. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, in fraternity and sorority, we love to hand out fines for our members who don't show up to events. It's like Oprah Winfrey. You get a fine, you get a fine, you get a fine, everybody gets a fine. And I just think that creates more work for your treasurer when he has to write all of that off at the end of the semester when all of your members are fed up, broke, and they resent the organization. It's also lazy. Instead, make your events fun so that members want to be there, and offer rewards for the top 3 members each semester by tracking points every time your members participate in an event. Your members are competitive. They want to win prizes, and they want the recognition that comes to them each semester. So remember, positive reinforcement works much better than negative reinforcement, and all of us want to have fun along the way. To tell us more about that, we have the master of fun, Jeff Harry, on the show today. Jeff shows individuals and companies how to tap into their true selves to feel their happiest and most fulfilled, all by playing. Jeff has worked with Google, Microsoft, Southwest Airlines, Adobe, the NFL, Amazon, and Facebook, helping their staff to infuse more play into their day-to-day. Jeff is an international speaker who's presented at conferences such as Inbound, SXSW, and Australia's Pausefest, showing audiences how major issues in the workplace can be solved using play. Jeff was also selected by Engagedly as one of the top 100 HR influencers of 2020 for his organizational development work around addressing toxicity in the workplace. His play work has also been featured in the New York Times, lots of other places. While we spend most of our time pretending to be important, serious grownups, it's when we let go of that facade and just play, that's when the real magic happens. So fully embracing your own nerdy genius, whatever that is, gives you the power to make a difference and change lives. Jeff believes that we already have many of the answers that we seek, and by simply unleashing our inner child, we can find our purpose and in turn help to create a better world. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Let's go. I'm excited. Let's do this.
Let's go. I am so pumped, man. Anytime you want to talk about play, Fraternity Foodie Podcast, that's where you want to do it.
Right.
So I'm so excited that we got connected and we got you on the show, because I know that our undergraduate college students all across the country are going to love hearing what you have to say. But I also think it's important for us to go way back, because you decided on Tufts University in Massachusetts for your undergraduate experience. Tell our audience, why did you choose Tufts?
I chose Tufts because of a girl.
Oh, no.
So, when you go on those tours, right? Like you go on all those like college tours and they all merge together. So after a while, you can't tell. Like you're like, what school was I just at? What, this tour sounds like the last tour. And then I remember meeting this phenomenal, smart woman at Tufts that I had a really interesting conversation with while we were on some tour. And I was like, are you thinking about going? She's like, I think I'm going to go. And I was like, okay, I'll go because you're going to go. Like it was that level where I was just like, if badass, smart women like this are going here, then I'm going to go here. Like that was it. It wasn't any of the standards. It wasn't like I don't know, what was it? US News and World Report. It's none of that. It was just like, she's super dope. I want to go to a place where she is, it was that basic.
That's so great. So did you ever run into her on campus afterwards?
Oh yeah, I totally ran into her. Yeah, but then like she wasn't into me. So I was like, oh well. But I'm like, but I'm already here. I'm already committed.
It would have been great if you guys got together, but of course that's not how the story ended. That's so great. And so, all right, so you end up at Tufts, and
Yeah.
eventually you worked at Play-Well Technologies for many, many years. You
Yeah.
helped to build one of the largest Lego-inspired STEM educational organizations in the United States, and you went from 7 people to over 400
Yeah.
employees. You introduced
Yeah.
over 1 million kids in the span of 14 years, and you
Yeah.
were teaching approximately 100,000 kids every single year. And you did collaborations with the top companies in the world. We're
Yep.
talking about the Lego Group. We're talking about Amazon, Facebook,
Hmm.
the NFL, Hershey's Chocolate, just to name a few. So, what was their mission at Play-Well Technologies, and what do you think made them so successful?
Play. That's what made us success. We had no idea what we were doing. I mean, literally had no idea. I mean, just to give you like, just to backtrack for just a moment. The quick Batman origin story was I saw the movie Big when I was in third grade with Tom Hanks,
Uh-huh.
and he was playing with toys for a living. And I was like, you can do that as a job? I was like, oh my gosh. So I started writing toy companies when I was like 10, 8, 9, 10. And I just kept writing them until I got into the toy industry like 15, 20 years later. And part of that was going through Tufts, where there was like Tufts was connected to Lego. I think they were working on like the robotics early on, right? But then I got into the toy industry, and I don't know if you've ever gotten exactly what you've always wanted and then been so disappointed when you got there. But there was no play, there was no fun, there was no high fives, there was no toys. There was just like, and I was so disappointed. I'm in New York and I'm like pursuing the dream job, and I had to leave my dream industry, come to the Bay Area, and that's when I bumped into this like Lego STEM organization on Craigslist, paying $150 a week. So just the idea of like, it was 7 nerdy dudes, and we were just like, how do we grow this? I don't know. Why don't we pick cities that we think were fun? Let's pick people we think are fun, and that was it. And it's like, I think it was Andrew Johnson says the future is where people are having the most fun, right? You'll find the future where people are having the most fun. And we were creating STEM nerdy programs before that was a thing. And we were just doing it because that's what we wanted when we were kids. And I think just that level of like nerdiness and excitement, and just more people were like, yeah, wait, you play with Lego for a living? Like, I remember flying around the country, and whenever I would have conversations with people at airports or on planes, I'd be like, yeah, I get paid to play with Lego. And they're like, no, you don't. Like they were angry. Like a lot of engineers, that's my background, mechanical engineering, just like everyone else. And they're like, that's not a real job. And they were both like excited and also pissed off that I was pursuing this. So at the beginning, it was just like a joke of a job. But the more we started like messing around and playing and making mistakes and failing miserably, but just keep trying it out and keep reiterating, eventually, all of a sudden, we have 300 staff. We have 400 staff. We have the Philadelphia Eagles asking us, can you do something for us? We have, Google being like, yeah, can you do our team building event? We're like, sure. So we're just saying yes to stuff, even though we don't know whether we can pull it off or not. And then just like, and then just nerding out from there. But really, this like play oriented, another way of describing this travel oriented mindset where you're just curious and you're just open to failing because that's part of the process. That's how you're super successful, because it's just fun regardless. Whether like we didn't really care about results. Like we didn't care about numbers. We didn't. I mean, I don't recommend everyone run their organization like this because it was a mess at times. But we were just doing stuff because we would pick cities because we're like, who wants to go to Austin, Texas? I want to go to Austin, Texas. Who wants to go to Laramie, Wyoming? I don't want to go to Laramie, Wyoming. Like, it's just, that's how we decided on stuff. We didn't do research or anything like that. We just followed our intuition, followed our curiosity, and followed our play.
Wow. And you're open to failure sometimes. I think that's the key. People, just really shy away from failing at things. But the reality is that gets us that much closer to the goal
Right.
if we can embrace that.
Well, the most successful people fail the most. Like,
Yeah.
that's just the reality of it, right?
Right.
And like the more we just get over it, like I now apply to a lot of like speaking gigs, right? So that then when someone gets back to me, they're like, sorry, I didn't get it. I'm like, I don't even remember I applied to your thing because I applied to 7 other things. So like, you just get over yourself. You don't take yourself so seriously.
Right.
Right. And I talk about how play play is the opposite of perfection. Perfection is rooted in ego and shame and constantly trying to be right, constantly trying to be like cool. And play is rooted in like curiosity, awe, and wonder. Like when you're at play, you're like fully immersed in the moment. You forget about time. You're fully in flow. You're doing the thing that makes you come most alive, right? And we've all felt that. And then we're always like yearning for that again, but you only do that when you can let go of like your ego and let go of like taking yourself so seriously.
Right. It's so interesting because when we were kids, that really was no big deal. There's that
Yeah.
famous TED talk out there where kids are just tinkering and and they fail at things and then they
Mm-hmm.
celebrate the failure. They
Mm-hmm.
literally have a party around the failure. And somehow as kids that's okay, but as adults we shy away from that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe we
Well,
need to return to that tinkering and celebrating failure.
I think we have to realize what actually has happened, right? So by the time you reach, I believe by the time you reach the age of 18, you've heard the word no approximately like 139,000 times. Like they did studies to find that. And you've only heard the word yes maybe 8 to 9,000 times. So you think of this society that's constantly telling you like, you shouldn't do that. That's super weird. You're strange. Don't start a fraternity. Why would you start a fraternity? Why would you start a podcast? Why would you make TikTok videos? Don't do any of that stuff. Just binge watch Netflix and buy stuff from Amazon, right? Like it's constantly telling you that you're not good enough. No wonder then we don't want to pursue the nerdy, playful thing, right? Because everyone is telling us that's dangerous, that's scary, that's, like everyone's gonna laugh at you. But when you pursue like the strange, like your weirdest part of you is your superpower, right? The weird part that you're like hiding right now, that's your superpower right there. When you own that, oh dude, that's when your videos start going viral. That's when you start like finding your voice. That's when you start like doing stuff that everyone's like, I've never thought about that before, as opposed to being like, oh, I gotta be like everybody else.
Yeah.
Because we're all trying to like I try to tell this to like a lot of college students, like the people that you're trying to impress right now, you won't remember in like 2 years
Nope.
or 3 years. Once college is over, you won't even remember what Chad's name was. Like you just won't. So why are you trying to impress him now? You don't even like Chad. Like you're not even into Chad and you're trying to impress Chad. So it's just like the more we can get over that and just do the thing that we are really happy with, like, one of the biggest lessons of people that are on their deathbed is like, I wish I had lived the life that I wanted to live instead of the life that someone else wanted for me. Right. And I think a lot of people, a lot of adults, college kids don't make the same mistake, but a lot of adults are, as Viola Davis says, chasing their worth rather than claiming who they are. They are chasing some image of what they think they should be so they could be considered successful. And then when they get all the stuff, they're still miserable. Right. They're even more miserable because they put so much work into it. Yeah. Don't make that mistake. Please don't make that mistake.
There's so much truth in your words. It's unbelievable. So many thoughts are coming to me. But even the college students right now who should be, full of energy right now. I mean, young in their careers, have not been beat down by the corporate man, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about that burnout that a lot of students are feeling right now. I mean, maybe it's because of the pandemic. Maybe it's because of who knows, what's going on in their lives. I mean, there's certainly a lot of anxiety and depression out there. And college students are feeling overworked. But you have this workshop. It's called Extinguishing Burnout by Rediscovering Your Why Through Play.
Yeah.
And all of the college student listeners right now, they are all experiencing burnout. Only a handful of people do all of the work in their organization, right? It's the 20% of the students in that organization do 80% of the work. So how can they remedy burnout through play?
So I'll answer it this way. So I love what Sean Acor said. If anyone ever, happiness researcher, phenomenal person, wrote that Happiness Advantage out of Harvard. He's a professor out of Harvard. And he created a workshop around, or he created a course called Happiness at Harvard. And it filled up. Like no one else could get in because like there was no other course about it. And one of the things he would tell all the college students, and he was like, I wish everyone knew this, not even in college, but also in high school. He's like, your GPA determines your success as much as rolling dice. Like, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, and you know how obsessed we were about our GPAs, dude? Like obsessed, like freaking out around finals, like being the like, well, maybe if I like quit school now, I don't have to do my finals. Like the extreme ideas that I would think, right? So it's tough to tell a college student this because they're like, no, it actually really does matter. Like, if I don't get a 4.0, then I don't get into medical school. And if I don't get a medical school, I don't do this or I do that. And it's just for us to be able to recognize that it's not that big of a deal. like regardless of however it plays out for you, you're going to be good. So I think that's the first thing, just for any college kid, before we even talk about the burnout of the people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then regarding burnout for specifically like the coordinators, because it always plays out that way. Guess what? Your whole life, every project team you're going to hop on, you are probably going to be running that project team because there's just super lazy people out there. There just are.
Yeah.
Having said that, there's a few different things that you can do. You know, one of them is like identifying what is the stuff that actually makes you come alive. What is the work that actually fuels you? Because the more you're doing that work, when you're doing the work that puts you in flow, you're 500% more productive. So if you're like, I love to recruit, I love to talk to people, I love to talk to potential people, potential members. That's like my jam. I love to be behind that table, as people are walking by, that's the stuff so identify what you love to do and be double downing on that and being like, this is the stuff that I want. And then set your boundaries about what you don't like to do and be like, someone else has to pick this up, because part of the reason why you're doing everything is because you're not allowing other people to step up, right? Like you need to allow other people to step up. And when they do, guess what? They're going to fail and they're going to do it horribly. And you're going to have to be okay with that because again, this is part of the perfection. If you're trying to control everything, the reality is you can't control everything. So the more you're clear about like, these are the things, this is my strong suit. This is how I best can help the sorority or fraternity. And then I need someone else to pick this up. And everyone's just like, sorry, I can't, I have class. I'm just so busy. I'm just like, okay, well then I guess that's just not going to get done until someone else does it, because I am not going to do it all, and that's really important. And that's just important in life, because the more you're setting boundaries early on in college, then you won't get exploited when you go to work for the first time, because at work, they do the exact same thing. They push you for as much as they can until you say no.
Right.
So you need to learn how to say no.
That's a great lesson. That really is. And I hope people will learn that in college, learn how to delegate, because the reality is, just like you said, there's going to be lazy people on your teams for the rest of your life. It's not just in college, I promise you.
Yeah.
And so you got to figure it out. You got to figure out, how am I going to delegate? How am I going to say no to things that I'm not the expert in and let somebody else run with it, even though you might feel like, hey, if I give this, they're going to screw it up, so I need to do 100% of the work. You're just going to burn out. Okay.
Yeah.
Like that is just a formula.
And things are just going to be, so let things fail. Sometimes they have to fail for us to learn, and it's going to be messy. And this is, again, part of the obsession with perfection, right? Is like, why are we so obsessed with perfection? Because we've been told to, like, you got to get straight A's, you got to get the top GPA, you got to get that stuff doesn't provide you happiness. Like at the end of your life, you think of your fun, joy, playful moments. So why don't you focus on creating more of those magical moments of delight, rather just being like, I need to be perfect? Because at the end of the day, let's say you get your 4.0, let's say you get straight A's. The level of excitement when you get that, not very powerful, but you have a really deep conversation with someone and you potentially change their life by having them join this sorority. You'll remember that for the rest of your life. Why don't we focus on creating more of those magical moments?
Yeah, that's a gift right there. That moment. I absolutely love where you're going with that. But sometimes in organizations, student organizations, even companies, sometimes we have to have difficult conversations with our people. And so, what's the best way to have a difficult conversation with your team?
Practice. So in football, they practice all week for a 3-hour game, right? At work, and probably in our own lives, we never practice having a hard conversation. So like, if you are going to have a hard conversation with like another member, right, or another part of your board, run that over and over again, not just in your head, because that doesn't help, but actually practice with your friends, practice with other people, and have them respond the way you would think someone would actually respond so that you can get the reps in. Because then talk about play, right? That's all about embodiment. And then you start to feel, oh, okay, this is not that scary. You know, what is fear? Oh, it's just false evidence appearing real. Like, this is not that bad. And the more you get those reps in, by the time you actually get out there, because the practice was so difficult, when you actually have the real conversation, you don't freak out about it, you know. And then again, also, you have to walk into conversations. I learned this from my friend Eric Bailey. Are you going into the conversation to be right, or are you going into the conversation to understand? Like, right? Like, what are we trying to do? Are we trying to win this conversation? Because if you're trying to win this conversation, you're not ready for that conversation, because then you only have one idea of how this has to play out, right? And expectations of the thief of joy. And you think you're going to go in the conversation and you're going to say all these mean things to the person, or you're going to say all these things, and the person's just going to be like, you know, you're right. I can't believe I did all those things. Like, it just never plays out that way. Like, I don't know why we ever believe that that is the case. So it's never going to play out that way. So the more scenarios you get to practice, the more you'll realize, like, oh, okay, I'm not going to take myself so seriously. And then be like, it's not that hard.
I love it. Now, earlier we talked about curiosity and some of that
Yeah.
curiosity that kids have that maybe as we grow older, somehow that's not really a part of our lives
Mm-hmm.
anymore. So how can asking one question change your entire day?
Yeah. Ooh, so let me get into. I love this question. So just some background, right? NASA did a study of creative people at various ages, and they started with kids at 5 years old.
Mhm.
And they found their creative levels were like 85, 90%.
Right.
And as they progressed throughout school, it went lower and lower. You know this study,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So that by the time they reached like the age of like 18, it was like 20%. And then by the time they reached like 30, it was like down to 10. So for a lot of college kids, like, you still have it, don't lose it, right? So the idea of not following your passion, you don't have to follow, like, as Elizabeth Gilbert says, follow your curiosity, follow the thing that actually just like piques your interest. Like, oh, what is that? Oh, well, maybe explore that. Oh, let me explore that. So a question that I learned from my friend Desiree that like can completely change my day, and I do this a lot when I travel, because you don't know what's going to come up next, is she would always ask this question with curiosity, not with yearning, but with curiosity. How can I get any better than this? Like, just how can I get any better than this? Like, I just woke up this morning and, you know, I had a really cool conversation with Michael. How can it get any better than this? Oh, I'm get to see my friends later on, and, you know, we're gonna hang out and we're gonna do a bunch of nerdy things. Oh, how can it get any better than this? I'm gonna make this ridiculous TikTok video. Oh, it might go viral. How can it get any better than this? And you just start building on it. And then from a positive psychology standpoint, what you're doing is you're priming your mind to look for the pattern of how it can get any better. Now, what does our brain typically do? When you're having a bad day, I challenge that you're not having a bad day. What you're having is you have a bad moment. And then your thoughts, basically, you have a thought and a feeling for between 30 to 60 seconds. And then you get a choice as to whether you want to continue to feel that feeling. So when you have a bad moment, then you're like, oh, I had that bad moment. And then you start priming yourself to look for more bad moments and more bad moments. And some people are like, you know, bad moments come in threes. So you say that to yourself, all of a sudden, guess what? You're going to see that pattern. So the more you can catch yourself when you're having that bad moment and then be like, okay, let me calm down. How can it get any better than this? It's got to get better than this, but how can it get any better than this? Not from a place of yearning, right? Expectations of the thief of joy, but just curiosity, and just watch how your day changes, right? Just watch. And it's small things, and you celebrate them, and you can even write them down. And the more you see it, you see the momentum of just like, it's such a freaking amazing day, and you never knew it was going to be like this.
Wow, that's pure genius. I absolutely love that. And that really can turn around your day if you start taking that approach. Now, the college students that are listening today, I think, one of the things that they have is they have this FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. And
Oh,
they're
yeah.
always kind of looking over the fence to basically say, is the grass greener over there? right? And so they really want to get experience in a lot of different areas to figure out if the path that they're on is the right path. And they're always thinking maybe that's the right path or maybe
Yep.
that's right. And so they're really kind of unsure which way to go. So
Yeah.
how do we get unstuck if we feel like we're at a crossroads in our life right now?
Well, the first answer is always you gotta play, man. You gotta, because what's play? It's fully present. You know, you need to practice more JOMO. Let's practice more JOMO, people. The joy of missing out, because I've watched it. I mean, I'll challenge any college kid where you like are FOMO. You go to a party and you're like, oh, I don't like this party. So then you go to another party. You're like, no, this party's not good either. Oh, and then you go to another one. Guess what? It's not the party. It's you. Okay. Like there's fun wherever you want, right? There's play wherever you want. And think about who's having the most fun. The person that's fully present, the person that doesn't care what everyone else is thinking, the person that's fully, I think of this, I'm sure you've seen this. There's like this viral video from like, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago of this just dude just dancing at this like festival.
Sure.
And he's just fully committed. He's fully into the dance. He doesn't care if anyone joins him ever. Nope. Right. And then these two guys come over to dance with him, and they're first dancing with him to mock him because they're like, look how stupid this guy is, but I'm going to dance with it anyway. And as they get into his vibe, they're like, actually, this is more fun than me criticizing him from the sidelines. I'm going to start enjoying it. And then they start dancing. And then all these other people are like, wait a minute, those three people are having more fun than I've had this entire time. And they start coming over. Within 2 minutes, this dude has 150 people around him. He is running the show. And at that point, he walks off. He doesn't even need the credit. He doesn't need it. He started the party. And why? Because he was fully present. Yeah. So the more, again, where you're asking that question, how can it get any better than this? And also really playing, meaning like really allowing yourself to do the thing that you just really makes you come alive. And you just like, if someone judges me, like, forget them. Like, I don't really care what they have to say. The more you can practice that, the more people just want to be around you, because you then are the party, right? You know those people that are the party. Why are they the party? Because they're fully present in the moment, and they just don't care about whatever else everyone else has to say. And having said that, right, at the same time that I say, well, they don't care, like for the most part, I don't care what other people have to say, right? I'm going to do and make my nerdy videos, but don't get me wrong. There's times when I do, right? So we ebb and flow through this. This is not black and white. Like you go through it, but the more you can just be like, will I care about their opinion in about 5 years? The more you ask yourself, and the more you're able to just let go of that and be like, Chad is not telling me what I should enjoy and what I shouldn't enjoy. Oh, just the happier you're going to be, because then the burden of trying to people please is over.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I even saw that with my own TikTok account. When you finally let go, like, that's when you get 600,000 views.
Yeah.
You when just gotta let it
really
go.
are just angry about it. Like, you're just like, I'm just gonna make this video because I want to make this video. Like, I don't care. Like, a bunch of people, I was just at a conference recently, and they were like, oh, I loved your videos, been watching your videos throughout the pandemic. And I was like, I'm not making those videos for you. Like, I'm making it for, I'm just trying to cope with life. And it's my only way of understanding life. If you enjoy them, great, but they're not about you. Like, and whenever I have made a video that I'm trying to go viral, horrible. It's the worst.
You get,
it never works. That's why it's just like even with a lot of the college kids or even high school kids, I'm like, stop making those dance videos. Like, stop doing what everyone else is doing and just do whatever weird thing you want to do. Because look at some of the people that are like blowing up on there. They're doing some of the strangest things, but it's so unique. There's a guy on TikTok who just fishes with his magnet. People love that dude. There's other people that race Hot Wheels cars, and like people on like a treadmill. Like, he's been doing that for like a good year and a half, 2 years. Love it. So like, no one ever told him that. No one's, you want to do that treadmill Hot Wheel racing? Like, what? Remember the marble guy? There's a guy that was racing marbles, and then John Oliver sponsored him. Now he's a sponsor of John Oliver. So again, follow your weird. Follow the weirdest parts of you, because that's where all the answers are. The answers are in the play.
I love it. You know, I have to ask you a question about one of your workshops. It's called Dudes Do Better, Dismantling Toxic Masculinity. And I have to tell you something. I mean, it seems like those words,
Yeah,
toxic masculinity,
yeah,
have all of a sudden become like political. These
yeah,
words are political.
yeah.
So tell our audience what types of things we learn in this workshop.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, the words get politicized really quickly, right? And then they lose meaning. Like critical race theory, like lost meaning. Like for the most part, people still don't fully understand what the definition of that is, right? And toxic masculinity is another one where it's just like, I'm a man. Like I run this workshop, and a lot of people think, oh, is that an anti-men workshop? I'm a dude. I'm a straight man. Like that's what I identify. I don't hate men because then I want to hate myself, and whenever I make a video about toxic masculinity, there are dudes that are like, why do you hate being a man? I'm like, I don't, dude. Like toxic masculinity isn't even about so much manhood, right? It's about an extreme version of masculinity, and it's an unhealthy one, just like there's toxic femininity. And I define toxic masculinity as almost an extreme version of manhood where it can be abusive and angry and telling you that there's only one way to be a man, right? You have to be strong, you have to never be vulnerable, you have to exhibit dominance at all times, you have to win at all costs. And that's where like bullying and hazing comes into play, right? But then there's also healthy masculinity, and healthy masculinity is like setting boundaries, being very clear, being very like strong and resolute, but grounded, like not getting like if you see people at like a frat and they're getting into fight, you're not the one, you're just not the one. Like you're not, like you don't fall for your emotions, right? And there's a healthy way in which to do that. And that's what I'm trying to talk about a lot of the times during this times is a lot of leadership right now. We are celebrating toxic masculinity. We celebrate Wolf of Wall Street. We celebrate Steve Jobs and Elon Musk and a lot of people, Jeff Bezos, that are abusing staff. They're abusing employees. They're exploiting employees and trying to squeeze as much out of them and then not compensating for that. That's why we have the Great Resignation, partly because of toxic masculinity. But if someone embraces both a healthy masculine and a healthy feminine leadership style, right? Jacinda Ardern's a perfect example, the New Zealand prime minister. She had the lowest COVID rates of any country in the world. Why? Because her healthy masculine was like, I'm clear, I'm resolute, I'm grounded, we're shutting down the border, this is what we're doing, all these things. That's the healthy masculine. But then the healthy feminine was like, and also I'm going to watch out for you, meaning like we're going to compensate you during that time. I think people are getting $3,000 like a month just in like stipend because they couldn't go to work, right? So she was both compassionate and empathetic and also firm and clear, collaborative, all these things. And that's how you become a really strong leader, finding balance in both. And I think the extremes on both sides are like, oh, you're such a feminist, oh, you're such a misogynist. Like we have to recognize there's value in both, and when we embrace both, that's when we can do our best work.
I love that answer. And, kind of going along those same lines, I think politically, it also seems like, politics, whether you're a Democrat, you're a Republican, it seems like there are these extremes out there. And for somebody like me that's kind of in the middle, like I feel like I don't even have a home. Like
Right.
I don't
Right.
fully embrace either extreme.
Right.
And so I don't know where that lands me. So how do we have conversations with people that maybe we're completely opposed to politically?
Yeah. Well, this is the whole point of like, are you going into a conversation to be right? Or are you going into a conversation to, um, you know, understand? I had a conversation with I lean more to I'm more progressive,
Mhm.
right? Maybe even more than progressive. And I had a 3-hour conversation with a Trump supporter, right?
Yeah.
And we hashed it out, and we went, and it was on YouTube. People could see it. It's long. It was really tiring, but we both were trying to understand each other. And that's the part. And I learned a lot from that conversation.
Mm.
I learned that many of the things that she believed, that she was like, that I feel like I was being attacked on, she felt the same way, right? She felt isolated. She felt alone. I've felt that way as well. And I think the more we can not only come from a place of understanding, but really try to look at where the similarities are
Mm.
and be like, how did you get there? Like, how did you get to that position. When you start to hear it, you're like, okay, I can understand that. I don't agree with that. I don't think that's your values completely are different from my values. But being curious enough is enough to hear their story. I think that's the part that I think that's where we can actually, start to bridge some divides. Like there's a group called Braver Angels that literally brings together Republicans and Democrats and conservatives and progressives and has them hash it out. I remember being in New York during 9/11, and right after 9/11, you couldn't go further down than 14th Street, Union
Correct.
Square. So at Union Square, I would go there every day. This is right after 9/11. And we would have debates with people. There were veterans from Vietnam, veterans from the Gulf War, myself, who's like anti-war. And we would just hash it out, like hundreds of people having conversations. That's what we need to have, where it's messy, where at the end of it, you don't leave winning. You don't leave like clear, but you just have a certain more level of respect. And talk about the power of play, right? Play stopped a war for a day. A lot of people don't know this, but in World War I, the Germans were fighting the Irish and the English. And on Christmas Eve, at night, a German soldier started singing Silent Night. And then an Irish person started playing it on his like, what is that? What do they have? Whatever that instrument, the Irish instrument, right? And then someone from England started singing, and they all were singing Silent Night together. And then a couple people came out onto the battlefield where they had been shooting each other for the last like 4 months. And they like shook hands, exchanged chocolates, and ended up playing soccer with each other. Like they exchanged alcohol. They were just chilling. And this happened all across the line. And mind you, on some parts of the line, someone would stand up and they'd get shot. So like it was a risk. It wasn't like peace everywhere, right? It was just like some places it worked out, some places it didn't. But for that night, they all played and hung out and just like, celebrated Christmas together. And the next day, they couldn't shoot at each other. Yeah. They had to pull the groups off the line. So if people that are killing each other can get healed by play, just imagine what you can do when you are willing to embrace the curiosity and simply have an open conversation with someone that you typically would not, but from a respectful standpoint where you're not trying to win, but you're trying to understand.
I think
Just see what happens. Just see what happens.
Yeah, that's the key.
It's
I think
hard.
All too often we get together and we're trying to win. And I think that's the question. Are you here to understand my point of view, or are you here to win? Because if you're here to win, then this isn't going to go anywhere. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And what is it? And what does winning even mean? Right? Like you just get like a feeling for a good period of time, and the other person feels crappy. Like, is that really what you want? Like at the end of your life, is that what you want, to be winning? Like no one remembers your wins at the end of your life. Like they remember those magical moments where you had a really powerful connection. Why don't we focus more on trying to create more of those?
I like that. I like that a lot. Now, speaking of politics, I mean, we all see politics in the office as well. Certainly, I've seen that a million times, and that ultimately is what drives me away from a lot of organizations, is the politics of it all. So how do you help with deconstructing the BS of office politics?
Well, I think we have to first recognize the absurdity of gossip, dude. Like, I mean, people love to gossip. Don't get me wrong. I love a little gossip as well. But how productive is it after a while? Like, you can dive into it for a little bit, but then after a while, you're like, it's just stupid, right? And I think a lot of times, again, people are taking themselves way too seriously. And when you really are like able to deconstruct it, like what we do in the Deconstructing Office Politics workshop is, instead of everyone blaming each other, we pull out like a stuffed animal and we're like, okay, everyone's going to blame that goat. Like you can see it behind me on the other side. This is the goat of blaming. Like, blame this goat the whole time. And then people are like, that's so stupid. It's absurd. Like, well, like it's the scapegoat. That's what it is. That's the scapegoat. Get it? Horrible pun. But when someone is getting angry at an inanimate object, then you realize, like, this is so stupid. Oh, that's how I'm getting angry at Samantha, or that's how I'm getting angry at Chad. Oh, can you believe that, we're supposed to do this party and Chad didn't get the alcohol? He never gets the alcohol. oh, I hate chat. And then you spend all this time like putting all of your energy in having Chad occupy your mind, right? And you're getting really pissed off at him. And it's just like, he doesn't really care. Like, so you're actually just wasting your time. So the more we can point that out, that you're actually stressing your own self out, you're making your own self anxious. And again, you go back to the question of like, will this matter in 5 years? Instead of me complaining about Chad not getting the alcohol, I know that dude is not reliable. Great. I'm going to find someone else that's reliable. Moving on. You just move on. You don't have time for the BS. You don't have time for the drama. And then anyone that just wants to, don't get me wrong, again, I love gossip at times, but like when you notice that the gossip is like eating a bag of Cheetos and you've just had way too many Cheetos and you're like, this is not healthy anymore. Like I've binge watched 40 episodes. I need to stop. Like that's when you're like, you stop it. And you're like, okay, we're going to gossip for 10 minutes and then we're going to stop because like this is just not effective. And the more we can be aware of that, that's the more we can actually start to dismantle it.
Man, I love what you shared here on the show today. I think it's so important and so relevant to fraternity and sorority, bringing that fun, bringing that play back, and just eliminating all of the politics of it all. I think it's just fantastic. So I love what you do. And you know what? I do get to Oakland, where you're at, often.
Hey,
I
let's
usually, I
go.
know, I fly into Oakland every time I speak at Berkeley. There was a time when I was speaking at Berkeley every 6 months, and I would always fly into Oakland because it's real convenient just to get up there.
Yeah.
And so the next time I fly into Oakland, I need a restaurant recommendation. Where should I be going to get good food?
Burma superstar, man. Burmese food.
Oh, yeah.
People are not ready for Burmese food. You're like, I've never had Burmese food. I know, neither have I. And then you go and you're like, this tea leaf salad is the greatest salad I've ever heard in my life. Like Burma superstar. I take all my friends there. If you love Chinese food, Shandong, right in Chinatown. Same prices they've had since 1995. Like you're just like, oh, you're like, those are I love the hole in the wall restaurants where the grandma screams at you. Right? Like if you think about like a lot of Chinese food restaurants, no advertisement, no ads.
No, none.
Fully packed, right? All the crappy restaurants, so many advertisements, right? So that's how I measure it. I measure it by like how many of that, how many people are in that restaurant of that descendant. So like if I see a ton of Chinese people in a Chinese restaurant, I'm like, this is a good ass restaurant. Good restaurant. I got to go there. Having said that, one last thing I want to make sure to pass on to college students, and I think I wish I knew back then. Well, there are two things. One, I should have made more friends with my professors, man. Like professors are just regular human beings. I think we forget that. And they love when you come to office hours. No one ever goes to their office hours until like freaking the day before the final or when they need a reference for their, medical school or something like that. And then they're like, and then they feel used. Then that just professor feels used. But if you made friends with your professors, dude, and just were super chill with them, they will hook you up.
Oh yeah.
Just because they're like, oh, you're not trying to get something from me. You're not only showing up when you need me, but you actually are interested in the subject. Like these professors just want to talk about nerdy stuff all the time because this is what they do, right? So I definitely recommend that. But the other thing I would tell them is just create as many moments of delight as possible, like those memorable moments, those long conversations at 2 a.m. I remember those more than I remember my classes, man. Like all those, like those moments where you're like wandering around with your friends and you're like, this has just been a magical night because we kept following our curiosity and just saying, how can it get any better than this, right? And you get to be whoever you want to be in college. You get to try out so many different ways of showing up. So like do all the experimentation, to try all these random things out, because when you get out of college, it's much harder to make friends. When you get out of college, it's much harder to build connections, and it's much harder to have all those moments of delight because you don't have all of this energy that you always have on campus. Like you can feel the energy at the beginning of the school year because just like everyone's just amped and I think what happens is halfway during the school year, we get into our rut, right? And we just hang out with our friends. And the cool thing about college is you could go up to anyone at any time and be like, hey, what's up with you? What's your name? What's your story, right? You don't do that afterwards. Like, this is the moment. So like cherish these moments, because these are going to be moments you're going to remember like 10, 20 years from now. And don't get so obsessed with your GPA. Get it. You got to graduate. You got to do your thing, but don't get so obsessed with like the results, because a lot of places, a lot of companies don't really care about that.
No.
They just don't. And also, you won't care about it in 10 years. So like, don't stress yourself out about it. It's not that big of a deal. Don't take yourself so seriously.
Maybe on your first job, but after that, nobody
After
cares.
that,
It's all about
nobody
what have you
cares.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody really
Yeah.
cares.
And
That's great.
we're all making it up as we go along. By the way, as you get older, you realize you know less and less. Like, and anyone that tells you like, this is the way, you need to do it this way, they don't know what they're talking about. No one knows what they're doing. We're all figuring it out together. And I just wish more people would just admit that, instead of pretending they were experts and being like, 5 ways you can blow up on TikTok. And you're like, really? You haven't even blown up on TikTok. What are you telling me that you're doing? Like, it's just like, stop giving advice and just admit we're all figuring it out together.
Amen. Amen. All right. So if our student listeners, if they want to bring you in to speak on their campus, maybe they want to get some coaching with you, where is the best place for them to go and to connect with you?
So best place to go is rediscoveryourplay.com, and simply click on the Let's Play button, and we can hop on a call and have a conversation about, you know, what I can do to get more play infused into your sorority or fraternity. And where I post most of my nerdy videos, because I'm constantly making nerdy videos. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all at the same handle. Jeff Harry Plays, JeffHarryPlays. Hit me up on Instagram. Hit me up on TikTok.
I love it. At Jeff Harry Plays. Go and check him out. Jeff, you are the real deal, man. I absolutely love spending time with you. I think you have so much to offer to college students. So I can't wait to see you on stages all across the country. And man, oh man, just keep doing what you're doing, man. I love it. I think we all need a little bit more play, and it's got to be fun. Otherwise, why are we doing it?
Why are we doing it? At the end of your life,
at the end
of your life, fun, joy, play moments, man. Come on, let's go.
This has been so much fun. So thank you, Jeff, for sharing some of your play moments with us today. I really appreciate what you do.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. This has been awesome.
Awesome. Very good. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this time with Jeff, make sure that you like this video. Make sure that you share it on social media with all your buddies on campus. And we hope to see you on another episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us, and we're going to see you next time.